There are many repeated ferocious murders in a remote village. The mutilated bodies of victims resemble the mummies, which are the ancient guardian gods in their houses. It is Kindaichi who unravels the terrible mystery of the Ijinkan village. A male skeleton is about 20 to 30 years of age who died a year ago, was found deep in the forest. It would be the source of the most brutal serial killings. Miyuki, a smart beautiful student, pulls Kindaichi, a skiver, the grandson of a famous detective, by the ear to school. Many students are huddling around the school notice board for a picture of the male teacher Odagiri and the student Wakaba coming out of a hotel. Two teachers tears the picture from the board hastily and require the student to go back to their classrooms immediately. Miyuki doesn't accept the decision to expel Wakaba, so she demands justice for her friend. At the urgent meeting of the teachers, Miyuki says that their love is serious. The president of the students' committee insists Wakaba must have seduced the poor man Odagiri and put him under her spell. The sharp-tongued woman labels Miyuki like Wakaba, who does anything for money. Regardless of Miyuki's appeal, both the principal and the president of the students' committee ignore her. Seeing through them, Kindaichi counsels Miyuki to pay them in their own coins. After school, two people of merit make a dirty transaction in a hotel. The principal promises good job for the son of the president of the students' committee in exchange for sexual favors. As soon as they go out of the hotel, Kindaichi takes some photographs of them. Thanks to the conjuring from his grandfather, Kindaichi easily took a discount of a hotel out of their pockets. His bet is they are regular customers of the hotel. Therefore, he has waited for them in front of the hotel. Making a pounce on their blunder, Kindaichi recommends an exchange. He gives them their adulterous pictures in return for the revocation of expelling punishment to Wakaba. The following day, friends are very glad for Wakaba's coming back. Wakaba expresses her deep gratitude to Miyuki. Miyuki neither takes Kindaichi's merit, nor tells the inner, she gives Kindaichi a fond look. Though Wakaba wasn't expelled, in a few days, her dad asks her for an arranged marriage in her village. Miyuki and Kindaichi see Wakaba off at the railway station. Wakaba seems to be pleasant and optimistic. She gives Miyuki her expensive necklace with a family symbol pendant as remembrance. Tears are rolling down her cheeks, when she gives a great thank to Miyuki and Kindaichi. Kindaichi gazes for a long, stunned moment because of the fragile behind the strong girl, Wakaba. A few days later, Miyuki and Kindaichi receive Wakaba's wedding invitation. Odagiri, the male teacher who was with Wakaba in the picture, pleads to go to Wakaba's wedding with them. Although Kindaichi is dissatisfied with the teacher's weakness, Kindaichi agrees with him. After 3 hours of hard crossing the bumpy mountain roads, the three of them have arrived at the Ijinkan village. From above, the village's shape is like a hexagram, the compound of two equilateral triangles. It is also called the Star of David. It originates from King David of ancient Israel. According to the Hebrew Bible, he was ancestor of Jesus Christ. The Star of David is depicted on the flag of Israel. A derivation of the Seal of Solomon was used for decorative and mystical purpose by Muslims and Kabbalistic Jews. The symbol pendant of the necklace which Wakaba gave Miyuki looks like the Star of David, but it is minus a pointed star. Besides, Shingo village in the Aomori prefecture may be the last residual place of Jesus Christ. It is a famous tourist spot which is near Wakaba's village. That is why the infrastructure of her village is designed like Western style. The first mansion is the Tower House, Goto Ran's residence, the symbol of the Star of David with one missing triangle on the upper right corner. The second mansion is the Plant House, Kusanagi Matuko's residence. The symbol of David's star lacks a triangle on the lower right corner. They stop at the third mansion, the Iron Mail House, Kobuto Raiji's residence, to ask for directions. It has the lower missing triangle. While they are knocking at the door, a girl with long dark hair and gloomy face is right behind them. She is holding the neck of a dead crow in each hand. Kindaichi tries to pull himself together and asks the way to Wakaba's house. The weird girl keeps silence and points her finger to the left. After thanking her, they jump into the car. Their hearts were pounding with fear. Based on Wakaba's necklace and the connection between the locations of the 6 mansions, Kindaichi knows that Wakaba's house will be after 2 more houses. He also predicts the 4th mansion. Its symbol is minus the lower left triangle. The glass house with many colorful stained glass windows is a Shiki Torhouse. Because the village's shape is a hexagram, each of 6 mansions is at a triangle. hence its symbol misses the corresponding triangle in a clockwise direction. The center of the star is a church which had been burned down. The fifth mansion symbol misses the upper left triangle as Kindaichi judged. The weather vane house is Kozumatsu's Junya's. Being in front of the clock house, Tokita Juzo's residence, they marvel at Wakaba's huge imposing building. An eye of an old man is cautiously peering out of the door which is opened a crack. Wakaba's father doesn't believe they are invited to the wedding. It is until Wakaba confirms at the first hand, he opens wide the door to let them come in. After apologizing for her father's rudeness, Wakaba asks an old housemaid for assigning room to her friends. Odagiri tries to talk with Wakaba, but she acts coldly and leaves. The old maid warns them not to roam around the house or its premises. Nobody will be held responsible for what happens to them. As the house is so big and creepy in the evening, Miyuki gets Kindaichi to go to the toilet with. Kindaichi is making a sententious speech to Miyuki. He realizes that they are lost. A cat suddenly appears that their hearts leaps into their mouths. The cat bumped into the cellar door. It creaks slowly open. Regardless of Miyuki's prevention, Kindaichi is eager to go down to the cellar. He stubs his toe against the doorstep and falls head first down the stairs. Discovering a headless mummy in the basement, Kindaichi and Miyuki all scream at the top of their lungs. Shining a torch into the basement, Mr. Tokita, Wakaba's dad, has a panicky reaction to their presence in his cellar. The mummy is the trigger for the spate of horrible serial killings. A real-life headless mummy which shriveled and mutilated beyond recognition. Kindaichi scratches his head in embarrassment, and explains that they mistook the way after coming back from the toilet. Although Mr. Tokita amiably leads them back to their rooms, his face tenses with anxiety. Waiting for Miyuki outside her door, Kindaichi recollects the headless mummy and the quick U-turn of Mr. Tokita's. The village is full of mystery. Miyuki opens the door, it bumps against Kindaichi with a bang. Kindaichi is going to scold Miyuki for her carelessness. His heart skips a beat due to her perfect beauty with straight long black hair. Furthermore, her eyes are big, beady and glistening. Her sappy body is at the awkward age. Miyuki squats to tidy up Kindaichi's shoes. Her soft bulging bosom awakes his human sexuality. The secret little boy swells up in his pants. Miyuki thinks innocently Kindaichi to hide something in. She immediately plunges her hand into his pocket to take it out. The ceremony before the wedding begins at 9 p.m. The owners of 6 mansions attend it. Kindaichi resents for being called pervert with the plain mark of a bunch of 5 on his face. The beautiful bride in the wedding dress walks into the hall amidst music. The bridesmaid, Kuroko Kabuto, is a screwy who held 2 dead crows. Kindaichi has chills running on the back of his neck because Kuroko's black dress is decorated by the crow feathers. The odd bridegroom is wearing a cloth bag over his head like a Ku Klux Klan member. The Ku Klux Klan, commonly shortened to the KKK or the Klan, is the name of several historical and current American white supremacist, far-right terrorist organizations and hate groups. According to the village's customs, the bride is compelled to spend a night in the church. The groom is at the mansion with the guests. Miyuki wonders if Wakaba can be happy with the arranged marriage in support of commercial target. Miyuki shoots at glance with Kindaichi as to seek his consent, but he pours cold water on her because of his hog. During the meal, Miyuki gets nervous, for Miss Rangoto, the tower house owner, focuses her gaze on Miyuki. Mr. Junya, the weather vane house owner, strikes up a conversation with Kindaichi and Miyuki. He sincerely thanks them for driving over the long bumpy mountain road to the wedding. All at once, Mrs. Mistuko Kusanagi, the plant house owner, jumps up and shouts, "The church is burning." She abruptly sinks her knees, bursts out sobbing. Soon after that, she takes food with her fingers for her cat. Since her son died in accident 5 years ago, her mind has been whimsical. Mr. Torao, the glass house owner, is unable to suppress his testiness, whereas the others sympathize with the poor lady. After the meal, some of them take the air on the balcony. Mr. Junya, the weather vane house owner, tells them about the old church where the bride Wakaba is in. The church was built by the Christian missionaries several hundred years ago. They had been here to search the apple of Eden. 20 years ago, one of the missionaries lived in the church with his 7 adopted daughters. They all died tragically in a huge fire. As far as an old age tradition is, the bride in her wedding gown is absolved in the church alone. She lays on the bed and prays until the sun shines brightly, its fiery rays replaces the soft light of the moon. The bridesmaids guard outside the doors of the church. Kindaichi makes as bold as to ask for the headless mummy in the basement. Out of the blue, the church bell rings. Mr. Junya is so confused because the church bell is rung only when there is a funeral. Everyone arrives in a hurry at the church. All doors are locked inside. Odagiri has a swift wit. He makes use of the powerful engine of his car in order to pull the door open. Running into, everyone is numb with terror. The white sheet is bloody from the headless bride, Wakaba. A massage is left on the bride's wedding dress. The head of the bride has been taken by the seventh mummy. Tokita Wakaba was decapitated like the headless mummy in her basement. Who is the seventh mummy? Who committed the barbaric crime? Nobody knows. Then it is the beginning of bloody serial murders of the seventh mummy. The case has been assigned to the inspector Tawarada Kutaro. The suspects are all present, except that the victim's father and fiancé have collapsed with their bereavement. While the inspector is questioning each of the suspects, Kindaichi suddenly cries out for help from a skylight of the church. As soon as Kindaichi breathes a sigh in relief due to having escaped death, he's immediately scolded by the inspector. Miyuki advises Kindaichi not to interfere in the police's business. Kindaichi seriously analyzes the closed-door murder. The door and all of windows were locked inside. There was only a skylight with iron bars on that a head is difficult to get through. Furthermore, a note was left on the bride's corpse from the seventh mummy. The case is a hard nut to crack. Even as knowing that Wakaba's dead body has to undergo an autopsy, Odagiri begs for not tormenting Wakaba anymore. He kneels and weeps so bitterly that the inspector knows he is the victim's boyfriend. The odd groom sneakily hides behind the bushes to watch the whole incident with silence. Mr. Ashiki asserts that the criminal is Kabuto Kiriko on account of her disappearance since the murder took place. Moreover, the others have solid alibis for they all were in the party at the time of the crime. The inspector Tawarada also affirms the arrest of Kabuto Kiriko is simply a matter of time. Kindaichi says that it is too soon to draw any conclusions about the criminal. A knot hasn't been undone yet, it is the locked room murder mystery. The sententious inspector couldn't care less Kindaichi's opinion. As far as he is concerned, Kindaichi's shallow cleverness only interferes the investigation. Kindaichi quietly makes a call to his superior, the inspector Kenmochi, who authenticated Kindaichi's talent in solving the opera house murder. As the inspector Tawarada is ordered to facilitate Kindaichi in investigation, he reluctantly shares information with Kindaichi. The results of DNA, fingerprints and blood test of the corpse confirm Wakaba's identifier. Additionally, the time death was between 10 p.m. and 12 p.m. Based on hemorrhagic state of the body, the murderer killed Wakaba before cutting off her head. Kindaichi, Miyuki and Odagiri moved to Mr. Kazumatsuri Jr.'s weathervane house. Mr. Kazumatsuri has rage for hunting, so many specimens were made by himself in the living room. He tells them the headless mummy in the Tokita's basement is one of their guardian gods. There are 7 mummies with a missing body part in all. Each of them has been preserved in one of 6 European-style buildings in the church. The nasty piece of work, Ashiki, the owner of the stained glass house, invites them to his party as a result of Mr. Tokita's sufferings from the death of his only daughter. Kindaichi makes a request for coming to the party. The guy Ashiki, a professed self-gourmet expert, feasts his guests with Chinese delicacy, cat meat. All of the guests shudder with horrific food, whereas the rum fellow, Ashiki, has a hearty appetite. Kindaichi affects to use the bathroom. As usual, Miyuki goes with him. They have seen a mummy without a right leg in Mr. Ashiki's basement. Having thought the guy Ashiki to eat her cat, Mrs. Kusanagi rushes headlong all of a sudden to get him by the collar. She shouts with all her might to kill him. Even so, Mr. Kazumatsuri explains that it is not her kitty, she is in her uncontrollable fury. Mr. Kazumatsuri and 2 servants manage to get the madwoman out of the house. Shortly afterwards, Kindaichi and his friends go back to the weathervane around 10 p.m. Being alone, Odagiri vividly recalls the passionate love of Wakaba's to him. She could die for him. He puts his face in his hands to cry silently. Kindaichi sees by chance through the door is ajar. He gives Odagiri a moral support. In the name of his grandfather, the great detective Kindaichi Kosuke, he is going to expose the culprit to comfort Wakaba's soul. At a place elsewhere, a frightening scenario is securely in progress. The following morning, the dead body without the right leg of Ashiki is hanging upside down in his refrigerator. There is a message which was written in blood on the back of his shirt. Vengeance of the seventh mummy hasn't ended yet. Like Wakaba, the Ashiki's corpse and the mummy in his house are similar. Both of them have lost the right leg. Mr. Tokita, Wakaba's father, says enigmatic words. It is certainly a curse of the guy. 6 people from that day will kill everyone. Renju, Wakaba's fiancé, keeps snug behind the door to watch. Sitting alone at the fringe of the forest, Kindaichi is ruminating on the recent events. According to the results of forensic examination, Mr. Ashiki was killed by the thrust of a sharp knife into his heart between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. Kindaichi hasn't interpreted some unsolved mysteries yet. The culprit's aim took a part of the victim's body, the meaning of Mr. Tokita's words. Kindaichi catches sight of Mr. Tokita moons around. Kindaichi follows him, but he lost sight of Mr. Tokita. The area is roped off for trespassing with a sigh says, "Keep out." To make sure no one around, Kindaichi lifts the rope, dips his head going through. Mr. Kazamisturi urgently prevents Kindaichi from going in, because of the poisonous gases zone. Mr. Kazamisturi informs Kindaichi about Mrs. Kusanagi's arrest. She is under suspicion of killing Mr. Ashiki. Kindaichi is in dispute with the Inspector Tawarada. In Kindaichi's opinion, Mrs. Kusanagi isn't strong enough to hang upside down such a fat man, Ashiki. The inspector supposes that the missing bridesmaid, Kabuto Kiriko, was her accomplice and the motive was the bitter conflict between Mrs. Kusanagi and Mr. Ashiki about cat meat. A cat is holding a finger in her mouth, walks toward Miyuki. Miyuki is so scared that she nestles close to Kindaichi. Mrs. Kusanagi's corpse without the left leg is discovered in her house. The message is written in blood on the curtain. The tears of the seventh mummy, the tears of blood are not yet dry. The missing part of the mummy in Mrs. Kusanagi is a left leg as well. After realizing the similarities of the missing parts of the corpses and the mummies, Kindaichi doesn't suppose that they are coincidences. Kindaichi, Miyuki and Odagiri come back to the church where was the first murder to search for clues. Seeing Kindaichi in the church, the Inspector Tawarada moralizes about the method of solving the crimes. They will have the answer to the locked room murder mystery after arresting the bridesmaid Kabuto Kuroko. Can't get any more clues, Kindaichi and his friends also leave the church. Nobody pays attention to a crow feather under a bedpost. As soon as they go outside, the cross on the top of the church is suddenly broken. It nearly falls right onto Kindaichi's head. It is fortune that Odagiri hurries Kindaichi out of the danger. The seventh mummy left a intimidatory massage on the cross. Keep your nose out of other people's business or your life will not be secure. Odagiri hisses with rage about the murderer's wild ways. Instead of trembling with fear, the message is an exciting challenge to Kindaichi. Miyuko tags after Kindaichi to the restricted zone. They gasp in astonishment at a large field. Kindaichi is completely dumbfounded by the dangerous plants which the missionaries had looked for in the village, the apple of Eden. In Armor House of the Bridesmaids, the only suspect, her father, Mr. Kabuto Raiji, is extremely worried about Tokita's strange words and his daughter, Kuroko. The frightening yowling of a cat startles him. He gets a stick to knock off the cat. She jumps on a suit of armor. The head of the suit falls with a heavy thud on the ground. How heartbreaking. The head of his daughter has been concealed in it. The seventh mummy's message, which is on the back of the suit of armor, says, "This is the second one, still not enough blood."